Hello, good afternoon. How are we feeling? It's time for your weekly trip to my mind again. So, welcome. So, today I want to talk to you about the difference between a symptom, a trigger, and a cause, and why it matters when it comes to treating endometriosis and other chronic conditions for that matter as well, because endometriosis isn't alone in this. So, let's start by saying that something doesn't have to be one or the other. So you can have stuff going on that is two of the three, you can have stuff that's one of the three, or you can have stuff that are all three of the three. So you can have something that is a symptom of your endometriosis, it's a trigger for your endometriosis, and it's a root cause of your endometriosis. So let me sort of delve into this a little bit deeper. What exactly do I mean? So at first glance, when we start talking about, so when I sit down with my clients and I start talking about what's going on with their endometriosis, what are they experiencing, what symptoms are they having, what problems are they having, what's going on with their bodies. And let's take something that's really, really common. So quite often people will say, oh, I have pain. Pain is the most common, or well, one of the three most common things that we come across is pain. Stress is another thing. So quite often it's not something that's talked about particularly openly. It's not really recognised yet in Western medicine, but the impact of stress is massive as well. And things like other things going on, like uterus tilted pelvis, pelvic floor issues. They're kind of the common things that we talk about when we start delving into symptoms of endometriosis, as well as all like the heavy bleeding, all stuff like that. So when we talk about heavy bleeding, that, just to take that as an example, because I've just used that, when we talk about heavy bleeding, the heavy bleeding is a symptom of endometriosis. So it's very, very unlikely that heavy bleeding triggers endometriosis, and it's very, 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 very unlikely that heavy bleeding is a root cause of endometriosis. So it's fairly safe to assume, and that's not to say that I would make the assumption, we would work through it as a process, but it's fairly safe to assume that for the majority of people, heavy bleeding is a symptom of endometriosis. Fab. So pain. Pain is also a symptom of endometriosis. So I've done lives before about why we get pain with endometriosis. Endometriosis pain is caused by numerous things. The endometriosis itself, in terms of the tissue swelling, in terms of the scarring, in terms of the stress and the psychological stuff that comes with endometriosis, all of that causes our body pain. Dehydration causes pain. That also comes with endometriosis. Or it can do. So pain is a really interesting one because pain is a definite symptom of endometriosis. However, pain can tell us so much more about what's going on with that person's endometriosis. So when we delve down into pain, we start to look at where the pain is, what type of pain it is, and the patterns of the pain. So why that pain is happening, because that pain can also be a trigger. So if you've followed me for a while, if you've listened to a few more of my lives, they're all up on YouTube, by the way. I'm starting a YouTube channel, so look me up on YouTube if you want to catch up. They're not all on there yet because it takes me time to go through and sort it all out. But yeah, where was I? So pain can be a trigger as well. So as like I say, if you followed me for a while, you'll know that I'm all about that intrinsic link between the body and the mind. So if you're in pain, that symptomatic body response to pain is to fight or flight. It's to try and remove ourselves from that situation, because remember, pain is a really, really natural thing. It's something that happens to tell our minds that we are in danger, so that our minds can then activate all the things to get us out of that immediate situation. So for example, burning your hand on the oven, your immediate reaction is to pull your hand away because your pain receptors have told your mind that you're in trouble and you want to move that hand away. So if you're constantly in pain, if your tummy's in pain, then you're getting all these subconscious reactions going on that you can't control, but that are telling your body that you're in trouble. So your fight or flight mechanisms are kicking in, which, I mean, there's a whole host of things going on, but the most pertinent to this is that your muscles are tightening, so you're putting yourself under more stress. Your body physically is becoming tense, which is causing more pain. Now, in the world of Chinese medicine, as we know, again, if you followed me for a while, tense muscles will prevent that flow of blood, that flow of water, that flow of qi through our bodies. So we're getting pain, that's a symptom of endometriosis. We're now starting to get pain that's acting as a bit of a trigger as well, because that pain is causing tension, that tension is causing blockages, those blockages are causing increased stagnation. So you're getting more inflammation, you're getting more things like cysts, adhesions, all of those kind of horrible nastiness. We're getting more toxic buildup, so we're getting more gut health issues. All of the other symptoms that we get are being exacerbated by the pain. So that pain can also be a trigger as well. That makes sense. So when we're looking at pain, again, just as one of the examples, it's really important to understand which bits of the pain are the symptoms and which bits of the pain are also acting as triggers. And then there's the possibility as well that the further we dig down into this element of pain, we can also start to identify the root cause, because actually some of the pain might be coming from the root cause of the endometriosis. So if your root cause is a tilted pelvis, if your root cause is a physical trauma, then that pain can be telling you where exactly that root cause is. Now, through things like kinesiology, we can really pinpoint that even further, so we can nail it down to specific vertebrae, specific muscles, specific area of the hip, wherever place that physical trauma has happened, we can start to narrow that down to that specific area. But this is a really good example of how pain can also indicate the root cause as well. So you've got pain generally with endometriosis, and that's why it's so important to understand what sort of pain you've got, where it is, and why it's happening. Because although you've got the general pain, once you start to unpeel those layers, you can see which pain starts talking to the root cause, which pain is linked to the trigger, and which pain is linked to the symptom. So you can start unraveling that big ball and start to make some sort of sense of what you're feeling. Stress as well. Again, if you follow me for a while, you'll know that I'm a big believer in stress and emotional trauma. Not just stress, but all sorts of emotional trauma playing a major part in endometriosis. And again, this is a really good example of how something can be root cause, trigger, and symptom. So if we take the idea of stress, because I've mentioned that, so if we take the idea of stress and all the emotional stuff that stress brings with us. So again, as a symptom, it's really, really horrible living with a condition like endometriosis, with the physical symptoms. So again, the heavy bleeding, the pain, the bloating, all of that stuff that comes with it causes emotional impact. So you start to feel maybe a bit stressed because you have endometriosis. So you maybe can't do what you want to do. You have to cancel social events. You're missing. Hi, Sasha. Oh, lovely to see you. So you're having... that's completely blown my mind that you're here. What was I saying? Stress. Yes, stress. So stress can be symptomatic of endometriosis because you're living with this stress, you're living with pain, you may be struggling to sleep, you're not eating properly, you're not getting outside, you're not getting the exercise, you're not getting the endorphins and the cortisol that you need to be happy. So you're feeling stressed because of your endometriosis. Quite often I see clients who have been symptom-free, haven't had a flare-up for a while, but they're having a bad time at work or they're having a bad time in a relationship and they're feeling stressed. So again, the body is going into fight or flight, and this is causing a flare-up of their endometriosis. So their stress in this instance, there has been no endometriosis, there's been no other symptoms to make them stress. Their stressor is an external factor. It's either home, work, whatever's going on, and that is causing a flare-up of the endometriosis. So they already had endometriosis, but now the stress is acting as a trigger. So it's causing that endometriosis to flare up, whereas it might not have been flaring up in the past. So then we've got two examples of stress being a symptom and stress being a trigger. And also stress can be a root cause. So again, if you've followed me for a while, you'll know that I believe, and I've witnessed that emotions are stored very, very deep within our bodies. So if we aren't dealing with emotions, if we're just suppressing them, if we're burying them, then they are held within our bodies. They are held within our muscles and they are held within our organs. Fundamental to Eastern medicine, this concept of the body storing emotions. So if you've dealt with stress for a long period of time, if you had either, like I say, a long period of time of your body being in fight or flight because of stress, or you had one massive, impactful, stressful situation and you haven't dealt with that properly, then your body is storing that, and that's being stored in the muscles. And quite often, the really, really important fears or important emotions like fear, like vulnerability, like stress, anxiety, are held in our abdominal area, in the muscles in our abdomens, in the muscles in our lower back. So quite often they are tightening because of the emotional stuff, the emotional stress. That quite often I've seen can be the root cause, or one of the root causes of endometriosis, because over time it's pulling pelvic muscles out of alignment, it's pulling the uterus out of alignment, so you end up with a slight tilt in the pelvis or the uterus, which is a contributor, or one of the root causes of the endometriosis. So again, you can see there how stress, prolonged or acute stress, can really impact in terms of a root cause of endometriosis as well. Now, I'm not saying it would be the only cause of endometriosis, but quite often this is one of the biggest underlying causes of endometriosis, and it's one that goes unchecked as well. So that's really important. If you're seeing a therapist to try and get to the bottom of your chronic illness, if you don't address the emotional as well as the physical, then you're not addressing the full root cause. So it's really important to break down all of what your chronic illness is. So if you're getting symptoms of pain and stress, it's really, really important to understand exactly where that barrier is between symptom, trigger, and cause, because it's always assumed, or mostly assumed, that the stress will be as a symptom of endometriosis. Not quite as recognised that the stress can be a trigger for endometriosis, and then hardly recognised at all that the stress can be one of the root causes. So this is why it's so important to work with somebody who gets that, who can help you uncover which part of your endometriosis is a symptom, which part of your endometriosis is a trigger, which part of your endometriosis is a cause, and then you can start to address the full picture. So you're not just addressing the symptoms, you're not just addressing the triggers, and you're not just addressing the causes. And this is why I get so passionate when people talk about healing endometriosis with diet. I mean, diet is so important. Nutrition is so important. Cutting out the toxins in our diet is so important. What we feed our bodies is so, so, so crucial. But with endometriosis and other chronic illnesses, a lot of the time you're just masking the symptoms. So with endometriosis, you can have an anti-inflammatory diet, or you can add anti-inflammatory foods into your diet to try and combat the inflammation. You can add organic food to again sort of regulate the hormones and minimize the toxins in there, which in turn is helping your gut health, which is helping your emotional hormonal balance, which is helping your leaky gut or your IBS type symptoms, whatever you've got there. But again, it's not getting to that root cause of the endometriosis, because chances are it's not diet that's the root cause of your endometriosis. You're just looking at a symptom. It could be a trigger, could easily be a trigger. So if you've had your IBS type symptoms for a long time, and again you've been flare up free, and then you start having a cheat meal or a cheat weekend or whatever, and you feel your symptoms coming back, then that can act as a trigger, but chances are it's not going to be a root cause. So the one takeaway from today, I'd say, is really start to think about your endometriosis as a huge ball of string that just needs unraveling. What layers are the symptoms, what layers are the triggers, and what layers are the causes? And you can mess around with the symptoms all you like, you can sort out your symptoms all you like, but unless you start realising and addressing what your triggers are, and then realising and addressing what your root causes are, then your endometriosis is going to keep coming back. I hope that helps. Sasha, it was absolutely lovely to see you. Thank you to everyone else who's been watching as well. Any questions, fire me a message. Take care. Have a lovely rest of your Thursday. Bye, guys.